Hello, my name is Emma McDonnell, and today I'll be presenting on work I completed with co-authors Ping Liu, Stephen Goodman, Raja Kushalnagar, John Froehlich, and Leah Findlater, entitled Social, Environmental, and Technical: Factors at Play in the Current Use and Future Design of Small Group Captioning. Real-time captioning is a key access tool for many deaf and hard of hearing people, and can be provided either via an expert human transcriptionist, or more recently, by automatic captioning algorithms. Both provide a nearly real-time, nearly verbatim transcript of spoken conversations. HCI has explored many ways to support deaf and hard of hearing captioning users, though prior work has overwhelmingly focused on classroom settings without engaging conversation partners. Recent work has begun to quantify the impact hearing people's behavior has on captioned conversations, but we seek to qualitatively understand how deaf and hard of hearing people experience small group captioned conversations and their perspectives on engaging conversation partners in using future captioning tools. This led us to two guiding research questions. First, what technical, environmental, and social factors impact the use and usefulness of captioning in small groups? And second, what opportunities exist to design captions and caption displays in ways that support more accessible group communication practices? To answer these questions, we recruited 15 deaf and hard of hearing participants who completed a survey before joining us for a 90-minute study session, which consisted of a semi-structured interview followed by a design probe activity. This data was all analyzed using reflexive thematic analysis. We break our findings down into first, qualitative themes, and second, design insights. I will be highlighting two themes today. First, the impact of conversation partners, and second, captioning online conversations. First, we spoke to participants about the role that the people they communicate with play in determining captioning's efficacy. Participants highlighted the different ways that conversation partners could impact their use of captioning. Some found that people could either wittingly or unwittingly be unsupportive, making it more difficult to use captioning. For example, participant 11 explained that during a meeting, somebody stood up once and said about me and my captioner, "Why are they in the corner talking?" I had to say, "Because I can't hear." And it was just like, why was that even necessary? So after that, I just kind of wanted to do my own thing. These kinds of negative interactions could decrease access in the moment and shape participants' long-term preferences for captioning tools. However, participants also described adaptive group practices, wherein their conversation partners worked to develop captioning-friendly norms. One form this took was changed conversation modalities. Several of our participants primarily communicate with ASL, and when communicating with a hearing person who didn't sign, they would use their phone, typing out their thoughts and using speech to text to automatically caption their hearing conversation partner, finding a middle ground that allowed for more accessible one-on-one conversation. Participants also highlighted the benefits of altered verbal communication styles to make captioning more effective. Participant 1 explained that his manager actively paused before changing the conversation topic to allow captions to catch up and give him the chance to jump in before conversation moved on. Participant 2 highlighted why this is so critical, saying, "Having captioning available is not always going to be enough for someone. Your culture needs to change in order for the captioner to be more effective." We'll now move on to our second theme, captioning online conversations, which included reflections on fully online conversations necessitated by COVID-19. The lack of visual and spatial cues online had a significant impact on participants, given that they are a critical source of information for deaf and hard of hearing people. Participant 7 described the experience of needing to rifle through all the individual video feeds to figure out who's talking, without the ability to spatially identify speakers, and without the auditory cues that hearing people can leverage. However, others outlined beneficial new online affordances. Participant 1 called online meetings much more of an equalizing factor, because his hearing colleagues also had to deal with technical lag and a single audio channel, minimizing overlapping conversation, which is accessible to hearing people in person, but always inaccessible to him as it cannot be effectively captioned. Participants also discussed the impact of having an omnipresent text chat during captioned online conversations. Some participants use this to communicate non-orally, opting for automatic captions and the text chat rather than interpreters in some cases. Others described using the text chat for caption error correction and clarification. Sometimes this meant participants would ask about a specific word they didn't understand, and sometimes their hearing conversation partners proactively noticed words that had been captioned incorrectly and corrected them in the chat. Now we'll move on to design findings. These findings came from two different sets of design probes we presented to participants, asking them to use these probes as a starting place to think about how we might design captioning systems in the future. They center first on caption visibility and second on conversation feedback features. First, we showed participants probes that explored how captions were displayed and who could see them. The first probe had a personal display, with captions only available to the deaf or hard of hearing person, a common existing setup. Some participants liked that this setup made it easy to maintain in-person communication norms, but others argued that this kind of display makes it so that the deaf or hard of hearing person is the problem that needs to be fixed. The next probe placed captions on a large shared screen that all conversation participants could view. Some responded positively, imagining that then everyone is a little bit more aware of what life can look like for us, though other participants worried that focusing on the screen would limit the human connection part of conversation. The final probe we proposed was a distributed display, having all conversation partners view captions on their own devices. Some participants thought actively pulling up captions helps the hearing people feel like they're part of the deaf individual's team as well. Others worried that it would be unrealistic, suspecting that their friends or colleagues would not use the technology. We also asked participants to consider the online analogs of all of these setups, and 14 out of 15 participants desired that when online, captions should be an option for everyone. Participant 14 posed, if there's 5% of the captioning that's beneficial to other people, then why not? The final set of probes we discussed with participants focused on kinds of additional feedback they could receive alongside captions and who would use them. Specifically, we posed providing information about speech rate, volume, and caption lag, identifying speakers, warning when speakers overlap, and providing a mechanism to correct caption errors. I'll highlight 3 of these probes. First, speech rate. Only 3 out of 15 deaf or hard of hearing participants thought that this would be something they'd use, but 8 out of 15 imagined it could be useful to help others notice when they spoke too quickly to be effectively captioned. The next probe is speaker identification, splitting captions by who has said them. All of our deaf or hard of hearing participants wanted this to be a feature of captioning, stressing that it can be incredibly difficult to make sense of captions without speaker identification, though only 5 thought that it would be particularly useful for the group. The last probe we'll discuss is error correction, the ability for a group to collaboratively correct caption errors in real time. 10 out of the 13 participants we discussed this with were interested in such a system, though they stressed that there are a lot of social and technical considerations for making group error correction feasible. I'll leave you all with a few key takeaways from this work. First, we argue that to fully understand captioning needs, we must study the interplay of social, environmental, and technical factors that impact its use. Our participants' experiences and preferences for future tools were irreducibly shaped by a combination of factors, and our future research should reflect this reality. Finally, we argue that while it is complex, we should move from viewing captioning as a tool only relevant for deaf or hard of hearing individuals towards treating it as something that all members of a conversation have an active stake in. This opens up exciting opportunities for future work that engages the whole group being captioned. Thank you all so much for watching, and I want to thank again my amazing co-authors, whose contact information is displayed on the screen and in the paper. Thanks.